So in this video, we will be talking about various emergency provisions which are laid in the Constitution of India. This video is for various aspirants who are having Indian polity as a subject, Indian Constitution as a subject in their syllabus, and we will be covering every aspect of it, be it the emergency of Article 352, that is national emergency, Article 356, that is state emergency, and Article 360, that is financial emergency. We will be also covering the various topics along with it, that is few articles, of course, Article 355, Article 365, and also Article 358 and 359, which tells how the fundamental rights react to various emergencies. So we will be looking as for the time being. So we'll be starting the emergency provisions. First of all, we have the emergency of Article 52, that is the national emergency. Article 352 that tells about or speaks about the national emergency. So, what we understand about the national emergency is the thing. There are a lot of things, lot of background, and lot of aspects which we have to learn. And there are a lot of contents which we have to cover in each of the emergency. And the first is the grounds in which this emergency is proclaimed. See, you have to know that we will be covering a lot about how the emergency provisions are taken now and how it used to be taken before the amendments which we have seen after Indira Gandhi's emergency. So, if I talk about the grounds of proclamation. See, if you want to proclaim the emergency of Article 352, you have to satisfy a person. But I said that if you want to impose the national emergency under Article 352, you have to satisfy a person, and the person is the President of India. And how he will be satisfied? The grounds of proclamation is when the president is satisfied that India is in the grave threat now. See, we are talking about the threat, right? And the threats could be three types, right? We have three types of threats which can be undertaken for proclamation of emergency. So we have external aggression, we have war, and we have armed rebellion. We will be covering how we have made some changes before the proclamation of Indira Gandhi's emergency and after it, as we have a lot of changes in the amendments which took place after that famous emergency. So if I talked about this external aggression and war is, everyone knows what is war. When there is a one country and there is another country, they have a different vested interest and they come along and they fight. That's a war. We have armed rebellion and we have external aggression. This external aggression is nothing but it's an extensive form of war. War is like a small fight or something, but when it occurs into a big form, it is known as external aggression. A bigger form of war is known as external aggression, you can say. These two are the part of external emergency. External emergency is nothing but a part of national emergency only. But when we are talking about external aggression and the war, then we talk about external emergency. This is not these external and internal does not have any significance, but it is just for making any sense that when you talk about war and external aggression, that is not within the boundaries of the country, but there is something which has a vested interest from the outside, right? So external aggression and war is the part of external emergency. If we talk about armed rebellion, I have to focus a bit on the background of it. From the starting, when we have the start of this Indian Constitution, we do not have this word. We have internal disturbance. Internal disturbance was the thing which was used by the Indira Gandhi, and it was misused actually. Indira Gandhi used internal disturbance as there was a lot of protests which were going on. As there was a famous case, Raj Narayan versus Union of India, where the Raj Narayan was won, and there was some allegation which were put that the election of 70s was which was won by Indira Gandhi was actually false, and Raj Narayan, which was in opposition, won that case. So there were a lot of protests against the government, that is Indira Gandhi government, and due to which Indira Gandhi misused this power, that was the power of Article 352, which used to say, it's now it is armed rebellion after the amendment, but which used to say that internal disturbance, if the president is satisfied that there is a grave threat to the integrity of India as per the internal disturbance, as per the war, as per the external aggression, the internal disturbance was used as the excuse for Indira Gandhi, and she imposed what we know as the famous national emergency of 70s. So, as Indira Gandhi lost the power, there was a new government which was made under Morarji Desai, Janata Dal, and they had an amendment in which the internal disturbance was removed or exchanged or replaced with armed rebellion. So it sounds right, because if you see internal disturbance, anything can be internal disturbance. Any protest, any, if I oppose the prime minister, if I say something to the prime minister, if I go and protest, be it a peaceful protest only in front of the prime minister residence, it could be internal disturbance for him or her, right? So this thing is to be changed, and it was changed. It was changed with armed rebellion, and now this armed rebellion is the part of armed rebellion means there are a lot of there's a big group having a lot of arms, and they have a vested interest. That could be an armed rebellion. This is the part of internal emergency. These both words does not have any significance. That is just to make a sense that these are the part of external, and this is the part of internal. This is the within the boundary of geographical boundary of our country. So we have internal emergency. Right. Now what we have to focus that this president's satisfaction is dependent on approval, right? How president is satisfied? President cannot impose the Article 352 emergency suo moto. Suo moto means of his own, right? There should be a approval for it, right? So now we will be talking about approval. See, as again I will talk about pre-Indira Gandhi era and after Indira Gandhi era. Pre-Indira Gandhi era, there was a thing that the president is satisfied, and the prime minister is responsible to make him satisfied or her satisfied, right? But after there should be every council of ministers used to say that yes, there is a grave threat to India, and the president, you should impose the emergency. But after it, see, if there is a council of ministers, right? This council of ministers is headed by a prime minister, and the prime minister thinks that there is a grave threat. Now this council of ministers works under this prime minister, and what Indira Gandhi did, that there is a president, right? Indira Gandhi said to president that there is a grave threat as per internal disturbance, and please impose a national emergency. What will happen when there is a position of national emergency? We will talk about it later. So now president will say that I want that every council of minister agrees with your decision. What Indira Gandhi said, that I am the captain of the ship, and if I am saying that there is a grave threat, you have to know, because I am leading this whole council of minister. So this is actually doctrine of faith and credibility that the president of that time announced the Article 352 emergency. But now this thing has been changed. Now you need an approval. This approval is nothing but a written approval. Written approval, right? So a written notice or approval. A written notice of whom? Of Council of Minister. Council of Minister, stating that there is a grave threat to the integrity of India, and there should be an emergency, that is external national emergency. So this notice is nothing but a consent, right? There is a consent of every council of minister to the president, stating that there is a grave threat, and the president, that's the best thing that the president can do is to impose the national emergency. You have to make a point here. When the president is satisfied that India is in the grave threat, we have to mention that India or any part of India. India as a whole or any part of India, because see, if you talk about war and external aggression, that is the thing that could cover a lot of part only. If I talk about the war between India and Pakistan, now if you see, we have this border area, that is Jammu and Kashmir, we have Punjab, we have Rajasthan, we have Gujarat, some part. So this is a part of India. If there is a war between India and Pakistan, so this part only will be covered under national emergency, not this part, right? But it could be whole of the India as well. That's the timing. That's the thing of the time, how the things are being influenced. Now, the next thing is written notice of Council of Minister. This notice is nothing but the consent. This notice is the consent of the Council of Minister. This consent is given to President, stating that there is a grave threat and the President is should proclaim the national emergency. All right. So what happens when there is a proclamation? Now, what is the thing? There is a written consent which is signed by the Council of Ministers, and now this consent is given to the President. Now, what will happen? President has satisfied that there is a grave threat and the emergency has been imposed. Now what? Now, after proclamation, what happens? Now, if you check one thing, this Council of Ministers are executive branch, right? Council of Ministers also includes the Prime Minister, and these Council of Ministers, including President is a part of Parliament, but everything is going around with the Council of Ministers. Whatever the Council of Ministers says, it is bound under Article 74. And we know what is Article 74, that says that the Council of Ministers shall aid and advise the President. The President is bound with that advice, right? So everything, the nucleus of everything, the power is revolving around this Council of Ministers, right? So this is the part of executive. But we always know that in India, the legislative is supreme, right? And executive is always responsible to legislative. So after proclamation, this proclamation is done by the executive. You require the consent or the approval of legislative as well. So after proclamation, you have 30 days. Who have 30 days? The party in the power who is responsible of giving the consent for the national emergency. So this the Council of Ministers or the party in power has 30 days to approve the emergency, the emergency plea in Parliament. Parliament means both houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And now, to have an approval, we have a lot of majorities, right? We have a simple majority. First, understand about the various majorities, right? Simple majority, we have absolute majority, and then we have a special majority. If we talk about special majority, there are two types of special majority in it. We will talking about it later. But now focus on the topic. We have simple majority, that is more than 50% present and voting. The strength more than 50% present and voting. Now, if you have, for an example, if you have 545 members, now 2 are Anglo-Indians that are removed. So say the strength of 543 is in Lok Sabha and 250. Now it is 250 in strength, but right now 245 are there. So we will talking about Lok Sabha for this example. You will understand for the Rajya Sabha as well, right? So 543 is the strength of the Lok Sabha, right? Now today, when there is this bill which is present of the emergency in the Lok Sabha, suppose they are present, suppose we are taking a hypothetical example, 200, right? Now, more than 50% president voting means that 101, you require to pass that bill with a simple majority, right? This is the part of simple majority. Simple majority says more than 50% present and voting, right? More than 50, you have to take it as consideration. Absolute says more than 50% of total membership of the house. What it means that now we are not watching about how much strength is present today, but we are looking at the total membership. We have 543 members in Lok Sabha and we have 250 members in Rajya Sabha. Now these are the total, and now more than 50% of it, is taken as consideration. And if you have the threshold limit of more than 50%, you gain what? You gain the majority under absolute majority, right? Now in this this is the thing. Special majority says absolute majority plus, we were talking about it, that is 2/3 present and voting. We have absolute majority, that is more than 50% of total member of each house. You have to know one thing, you have to make a point. Present and voting of each house, and of the membership of more than 50% of total membership of each house. In special majority, we take the absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the total membership of each house, plus 2/3 present in voting. So if I take an example here, 245 I am taking for the speaker for Lok Sabha instead. So we have 543 members right now. So that's the total strength. We need more than 50%. Okay? And plus we require 2/3 present and voting. If there is total strength of 543, we need absolute majority of it. And the day which the bill is present for the emergency, suppose the present is 180 suppose, right? So now what will happen? 2/3 of 180 will be taken. 2/3 of 180. If you get 2/3 of 180, you will achieve this 2/3 present in voting. And if you achieve the more than 50% of total membership of each house, you will achieve the absolute majority. If you achieve both couple, you will achieve special majority, right? So this is the thing of various majority. There is one more majority of special majority that requires a state ratification. State ratification is nothing we will be talking about later on. We are not focusing on various majorities. We are focusing on emergency provision. But in emergency provision, we are going to talk about special majority. So that is required. That I thought everyone should know about various majorities first, right? So special majority is nothing but it is used, or the state ratification majority is used when there is something change in the federal structure of the constitution. So like Supreme Court, President, etc. So now the bill is present in the parliament, and it requires special majority now. The bill should be passed in each house with special majority. That is more than 50% of total membership of each house plus 2/3 present and voting. All right. If you pass this bill in each house, then after passing, I'm removing this. So after passing, if you have passed it successfully, after passing this emergency bill in both of the houses, India will be under, India, a part of India, will be under emergency for 6 months. 6 months emergency. So if you pass in a parliament, then the validity of that emergency, of that approval, will remain for 6 months. And after 6 months, if you think that there exists a grave threat, there is a cloud of war which is over the top of India, and we need more time, so this 6 months can be further increased to infinite. And the 6 months and this limit of 6 months can be increased How much time? Infinitely. But again, after 6 months, you will be following this trend, that is, you have to pass the bill in the parliament with a special majority, and then only you can make it for 6 months, or you can extend it for 6 months, right? So this is indefinite time, you can do it in infinite time. And now we will be talking about a revocation, right? This is a thing which we have to take as consideration. You have approved it, but now you have to revoke it. See, emergency, if you talk about emergency, there are a lot of things which changes actually. There is a lot of things, like we have the federal structure. Federal structure, if I talk about, India is a federation. Federation means we are not true federation, right? We are the quasi federation with a unitary tilt. That means if I talk about the USA, that USA was made of various small states, which are come under the agreement to make a United States. That is how a USA was made, and this was a true example of true federation. But India was a big union actually, was a big union, and for the purpose of better administration, India was divided into small parts. So India is not true federation, but India is a federation because there is a division of powers, and division of powers is a true essence of federation, right? But if you see the Article 1 of Indian Constitution, you will see that India, that is Bharat, shall be the union of states, right? So in normal times, what happens is there is a union government in center, and there are a lot of states, right? We have states, 28 states and 8 union territories, right? So there is a division of power. We have 11th schedule, which has state list, central list and union list, and the division of power occurs in this schedule, right? There's a lot of things which are mentioned in various schedules or various lists, and as per those lists, both central and state works, right? But in a time of emergency, all the powers of state comes under the union government. So in normal times, India is a federation, but in extraordinary times, that is the emergency, India becomes what we call as a unitary structure, a unitary government. There will be no power to states. Every power of the state government will be vested under the central government. The central government is liable to make laws for them. So that is why we are watching it, and you require a special majority because it is affecting the true essence, or of the federation of the, that is why it requires special majority. But it is like a dead letter. We use dead letter for Article 356 emergency, but it is a dead letter actually, because this emergency provision is actually the example of how quasi federalism with unitary tilt to work. So that is against the essence of federation, and any federal structure will try not to use such provision, and use this provision when the water comes upper the neck. So now if you want to proclaim it, you need a special majority, but if you want to remove it, if you want to revoke it, revocation of emergency, you require simple majority. A bill will be presented to each houses for the revocation of emergency, and if you pass it with the simple majority, that is more than 50% represented voting, the emergency will be revoked. So what will be the effects of it? We have already seen the effects. We have seen that state legislative, and we are watching the effects now. We are watching the effects. So there are a lot of effects of it. We have first we have the effect on state governments, state legislature, and state executive powers. These both powers of making laws and executing it goes to central government, goes to union. And you will suddenly see that as we are federation, we are converted into a unitary country. So we are watching that all the power has been gone to government. Now we will be talking about two main things, that is Article 358 and Article 359. Article 358 says, see, this Article 358, 359 provisions are added after the amendment of uh, which is made by the Morarji Desai government after the famous emergency of Indira Gandhi's 1977 emergencies, 75-77. Now, Article 358 says, see, there's a question of what will happen to fundamental rights under the emergency provision, because under emergency provision, the government, central government has immersive power, right? So, what happens to the fundamental right is a big concern, because if you check the emergency of 75, which was made by Indira Gandhi, after proclaiming it, got so powerful that it made all the opposition parties leaders into the jail. So there is a violation of fundamental rights. We have Article 19, right? We have Article 21, we have Article 20, we have Article 22 that talks about prevention of detention and conviction, right? There are a lot of things which are which we have to keep in mind. So Article 358 says that when there is a proclamation of national emergency, if you talk about external emergency, Article 19 automatically suspended. Why? I will give you a perfect reason for it. Article 19 talks about freedom rights, right? We have 6 clauses under it that talks about association, movement, speech and expression, residence, profession, right? So what happens is, what if there is a war, right? And under it, the government says that we are under war. You have to be prepared under various circumstances. This is an extraordinary situation. What if you go out and say that I don't have a job, I want job, and government will say that we are under the condition of fighting a war, and you are talking about jobs, right? This is not the thing right now which we should focus. So what I will say that it's my fundamental right to make an association out of it, or I must profess myself. I have the freedom of speech and expression, so I can do anything. I can ask for job. I can speak against the government. So there are some things which we should mention, that we are not in ordinary circumstances. We are in extraordinary circumstances. The government says that under external emergency, the focus and priorities of the government shifts towards protecting the whole of the geography of India. That is why external emergency automatically Article 19 automatically suspended. If we talk about internal emergency, what happens to Article 19? Article 19 does not suspend. Article 19 not suspended. So, in the condition of civil unrest, that is armed rebellion, there is no suspension of Article 19. Now we will be talking about Article 359 that talks about the enforceability of fundamental rights. We are not talking about fundamental rights only. We are talking about its enforceability. See, fundamental rights are enforceable in courts, right? Whatever state does to you, and if it falls under your fundamental rights, if state violates your fundamental right, you have provision of there are a lot of writs. We have Article 32, which talks about a lot of writs. We have habeas corpus, mandamus, certiorari, prohibition, and quo warranto. There are a lot of writs. You can appeal in the Supreme Court or High Court using these writs, and you can enforce your fundamental rights. But except Article 20 and 21, it's talk about conviction for offences, and 21 we have freedom of life and personal liberty. Conviction of offensive, we have no double jeopardy, we have no self incitement, I think. I'm forgetting it. You have to look about Article 20. It says freedom in respect of conviction of offences. We have Article 21 that says freedom of life and personal liberty. Except Article 20 and 21, we have restriction in enforceability. What does it mean? It says that under the Article 352 emergency, except Article 20 and 29, your enforceability power has been restricted, right? And now there are a lot of we have Article 12 to Article 34. These are the fundamental rights, and the question arises that every fundamental right which is mentioned under these articles has been restricted for enforceability. This will be addressed as per the president's notice after the proclamation of emergency. There could be some fundamental rights that are restricted for enforceability, and there could be every fundamental rights except Article 20 and 21 that are restricted for enforceability. So this provision is actually flexible. Not every fundamental right is restricted in enforceability. There could be every, but this restriction will be addressed under the president's guidance, right? So this is the thing. We have covered the Article 35. Acha, now we have to there's a point which is left. The point is what happens to Lok Sabha. So Lok Sabha tenure. Now in under emergency you cannot go for election, right? So this tenure of Lok Sabha is extended for 1 year. How much time? Indefinite time. Indefinite time till the emergency lasts. So the tenure of Lok Sabha can be extended for indefinite time in an installment of 1 year each, right? So this is everything you should know about the emergency of Article 352. In next video we will be covering the emergency of Article 356 coupled with some provisions of Article 355, 365 and the last emergency, that is Article 360. It will take one video only. This was a big topic, so it took a lot of while. So that's all for this video. Tune for the next video.